Howdy, folks. Spencer here, and for the past 4 or so months, I've been covering the ongoing situation between Cryptic Studios and DECA Games. In that time period, we have seen many of the Cryptic developers depart the company, and for those that remain, the vast majority of them are posting over on LinkedIn stating that they are looking for new employment. And for pretty much the entire time period, we've been in the dark about what exactly is going on, but all of that changed last week when Cryptic CEO Phil Frazier went over to the Stowe subreddit and started to answer some questions. So today I want to take a look at the things he said over there and give my assessment on what exactly this means for the future of Cryptic's titles and for Cryptic itself. As always, chapters to everything will be listed down below. First up, let's take a look at some of the comments from Phil Frazier, the CEO of Cryptic Studios. He's been at Cryptic for the past 5 years, 3 of those years as the CEO. And over on Reddit, he is Philly Cheese. So let's start with the first comment here. Quote, totally get it. Basics, Cryptic Studios is moving under DECA, previously under Gearbox. We've been working with the great folks at DECA for several months now, and the transition is making steady progress. The team at Cryptic is fully aware of what's happening, and some have decided to move on to different, hopefully greener pastures. Expect more of that in the coming months. Stowe will continue on. DECA has plans that we'll share soon. But the summary is they intend to continue supporting the game and with a similar cadence and content mix. So expect more devs to depart as the year progresses, and DECA, the company that is going to be taking over development of the game, does intend to continue developing it and to release content in a similar format to what we've seen for the past couple of years. Next up, in response to me pointing out that the radio silence has caused people to be quite concerned, Bill said, quote, the concern is valid. A transition like this is complicated. We've spent the last months onboarding DECA staff into the product and business, and we're not done yet. I can confirm the game isn't going anywhere, meaning it's not being sunset, and more content is incoming. DECA is still building their team and learning. They will absolutely provide an update when they are further into the transition process. Their ambition is to keep the train rolling on the same track and at the same speed, end quote. So we know that more content is incoming. So he's not just BSing an answer here. We do legitimately know that there is going to be more story content for the game. We know this because when Al Rivera left, he left a lot of documentation about how the story would continue. We have seen that DECA has hired narrative-focused people to work on this game, as I've talked about in prior news videos. And as I covered in a news video a week or so back, there are Star Trek actors talking about that they're going to be doing some more voice recordings for the game, and there were even some spoilers dropped about some of the upcoming storylines. So we do know he's not BSing here. There legitimately is going to be more story content moving forward. Next up, with regards to DECA being mobile focused, quote, very thoughtful question. You are right that DECA has extensive experience in the mobile space. The team they are building for Neverwinter, Stowe, and Champions are not their mobile teams. They are hiring people with extensive console/PC experience and are also targeting people with deep knowledge of the IP. There is absolutely going to be a learning curve, which is why Cryptic is here to help, end quote. So DECA is going out and building a team dedicated to working on Cryptic's titles. And specifically, they are making sure to look for people that have deep knowledge of the IP, which we did see with the narrative person they hired, Flo. She had previously worked on Star Trek Infinite. So DECA is going out and looking for people connected to the IP that are interested in it, that are going to have some relevant experience. So they're not just hiring random people that work on mobile games. They are getting the right type of people for this type of game. Next up, I want to read the bottom part of this response here. Quote, we're working extremely hard with DECA to transition knowledge, skill, and anything we can think of to maximize the chance that Stowe will continue well. I'm confident we'll work it out, but we need to see it through, end quote. So part of the reason that so many on the Cryptic teams are still there is because they're still needed for this part of the transition process. DECA needs to understand how the game works. So DECA's hiring people, having them train alongside the people currently working on the game, And eventually the DECA folks are going to fully take over. But for the time being, the reason you didn't see all of the Stowe team and Neverwinter team and all them laid off last year is because they're still needed to train the new folks and to make sure that DECA is fully able to handle the game when it does fully fall under DECA's control. And another comment here that I thought was a bit interesting, quote, regarding the leadership questions, Cryptic remains at the helm as DECA is getting up to speed. They will take control at some point and will identify appropriate discipline leadership. They already have an art and design leadership in place, but it's too soon in the transition for them to express their vision. So we saw last week that Thomas posted he was looking for employment. He is still at Cryptic, but he's not going to be there long term. And we can see that DECA already has art leadership in position ready to replace him. And design-wise, I don't know if this is for the system side of things or for like what Al Rivera was doing, but you can see DECA is starting to fill those positions. And with regards to why DECA doesn't just hire the current Stowe dev team, remember DECA is based out of Europe, and as Phil says here, quote, truth be told, game dev talent in the US is notably more expensive than other parts of the world. With DECA taking over, there should be more bang for buck, even with the same overall budget. So they're going to look for people in countries that are not as expensive. So that is definitely one of the contributing factors to why the current Stowe team isn't going to stick around. And the other is DECA wants people to work in that European time zone. So for people US West Coast, they don't want to be waking up at midnight just to start their workday. So understandably, the best move for them career-wise is to just look for opportunities elsewhere. And I know that the thought of new people stepping in to develop the game sounds a bit scary to some of you, but there's a really nice comment here from Phil that hopefully will set your mind at ease. Quote, I totally appreciate the concern. I don't want to diminish the impact of the folks you've called out specifically, but the STO team is pretty deep. It's extremely rare to see one game dev work on one game for more than 10 years. We have a lot of really great people, and the folks I've met at DECA are coming in with strong capabilities and a fresh perspective. I'll use myself as an example here. I spent almost 15 years working on sports games at the top of my career. When I finally decided I wanted to leave, I had a heck of a time getting other companies to give the sports guy a chance with something different. Having the opportunity to experience game dev life outside of one company and on more than one project made me a more well-rounded game developer. After having so much success at Cryptic, I'm thrilled that these talented developers are taking a chance on something new. It's a tiny industry, and I mean it when I say it. I hope our paths cross again soon, end quote. So, the big thing here is fresh perspective. The fact is, a lot of people on the Stowe dev team have been there a very long time, and we have seen that when someone new steps into a role, that the new ideas that they can bring in can be really impactful. So take a look at Jonathan when he became the lead systems person, when Borticus moved on to a different project at Cryptic. We saw a lot of really creative new things enter the game that really shook up the meta and made a lot of different playstyles extremely capable, very, very, very popular. It was a very good set of changes. You know, again, it really shook things up. And that's the power of having a fresh perspective on things. So, you know, it may sound scary, but the people that have been there for a long time, that they've already went through, done most of the ideas they had for the game. And when you have new people coming in to work on things, that does mean that there's going to be some new things done with the game that are probably going to be very beneficial once we see what they are, that would never have happened under the prior development team because they wouldn't have thought about it. So that's a benefit of everything going on here that Phil pointed out. A fresh perspective can be good, and like I said, we've seen a recent example of that with Jonathan. And I have one final comment that I want to read here from Phil. Quote, this response has a lot right and does a nice job at connecting dots. One thing to keep in mind with my prior responses, the future of Stowe, Neverwinter, and Champions and the future of Cryptic are two separate things. I do believe our live games will continue to flourish under DECA. This change on paper is designed to enable that to be true. We have to get the transition right. DECA has not taken anything over yet. Any issues being felt by the community are our fault at Cryptic, and we're doing our best to resolve the most critical while also working on our upcoming releases. And that's pretty much all that's relevant here. So the future of Stowe, Neverwinter, and Champions is different from the future of Cryptic. And what this tells me is we know that DECA is taking over Stowe, Neverwinter, and Champions, but what is going to happen to Cryptic after that? Cryptic just had their unreleased games canceled, and their only other games are now being stripped away from them and transitioned over to a different company under a different development team. The end game is that Cryptic is not going to be around when the transition is done. And that is why you see so many of the Stowe dev team continue to post that they're looking for work elsewhere, because they're basically on a timer. Every day that goes by is another day closer towards them not having a job at Cryptic. So they are looking to get employment elsewhere while they're still employed at Cryptic so that they don't have any downtime there. So that's the future here. And to summarize everything that Phil has said, I've got a notepad here. Let me pop it up for you. Like I've said multiple times, Stowe, Neverwinter, and Champions Online are not going anywhere, and they will continue to receive updates at a similar pace to what we currently see. DECA is taking over development. They are building up a team of people with console and PC experience and interest in the IP. We've seen them hiring people from Star Trek Infinite, for example. The end game of this transition is that Cryptic is not going to be a thing anymore, and we should expect more dev departures as the year progresses, especially with them knowing that this is the end game for Cryptic. And lastly, Phil did mention that he's looking at doing a stream with Ambassador Kale, Brett, the Neverwinter executive producer, and Jared, the Stowe executive producer, sometime mid to late March. So we'll see how it goes, but ultimately it's good to have something official out there from Cryptic. The silence for such a long time was causing a lot of concern in the player base, so having any communication at all is definitely a step up versus what we've seen for the past 4 months. And that's going to be it for part 1 of this video. The second part is going to be some questions that I'm going to send DECA's way. But before I go to the members screen here, I had someone in a recent stream comment in the chat claiming to be from DECA. Now, unfortunately, I completely missed their first comment, and the second and third both happened while I was in TFOs, and I just completely missed them when I was going in and catching up on the chat afterwards. So if this is legit and not a troll, and someone from DECA wants to reach out and have a chat, I'll have my business contact email down below along with my Discord name. If you are from DECA, I'd love to sit down and have a chat about things. But that's going to be it for today. As always, thank you to all channel members and viewers for the continued support. See you guys around.